So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Tory MPs kind of face planting on the local election results. We haven't still got all of the results yet. This video should come out today in the evening. But you got this guy Greg Hands, the worst joke in the world, which is Labour left us with no money, saying kind of blaming Putin for the election results. So let's have a listen.
It's been a disappointing night for us, and we all said that it was likely to be so. And we've lost good council leaders, councillors, so it's been a difficult night for us overall.
But what do you put it down to?
Well, look, I think in many cases it's local factors. In many cases
it's not local factors, dog. I'll tell you that for free.
Classic sort of midterm government unpopularity. Clearly, last year was a very difficult year for the whole country, for the whole party. After Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the spike in energy prices, the big rise in inflation, people are...
we had the highest rise of inflation out of the G7 members. Why is that? Is it, you're just blaming global factors, or is that down to you guys and your mismanagement and your Brexit?
Still dealing with the consequences of that. What I am clear about, though, is that we've lost some good councillors.
Mr. Hands, you're surely not blaming Vladimir Putin for losing control of Medway Council after 23 years?
Well, I'm saying the backdrop to these elections has not been the best.
Would that be everyone on strike, nurses, teachers, picket lines? Do you think that plays a role, Mr. Hands?
Well, that's, again, driven by the higher inflation. That's one of the reasons why Rishi Sunak and the whole government are getting on with delivering on what we call the 5 priorities, which are halving inflation.
You're not going to halve inflation, dog. There's nothing you're doing to halve inflation, let's be honest. Energy and gas providers profiteering, supermarkets profiteering. You're not doing anything about it. Let's be real. And, February's inflation number was higher than you expected it to be.
Restoring growth, cutting the debt, reducing hospital waiting lists, and stop.
You're not doing any of that. Let's be honest. And those are the more of the other factors. And this I saw this picture. It made me laugh though. It goes, quote, "So Agent XXX has succeeded in taking Medway Council," end quote. And it's a picture of Putin. I mean, you can't be blaming Vlad for all of this. The whole world is dealing with the consequences of the war in Ukraine. Yet you're the only ones, in terms of, you're the ones making out to be like that's the only thing affecting the country. Let's be honest, it's you guys. You guys are the main problem. You got this Jonathan Gullas, who looks like he's just been put in, getting a mugshot for being a serial killer. Guy has a weird face on, let's put it that way, and his kind of take on this is just phenomenal as to why, because his constituency, his area, they lost their council, Labour won it back, and he's on
the turmoil in the Conservative Party
there's a lot of background noise in the clip. I can't help that. It's not anyone's fault.
Last year, Partygate, Chris Pincher, the Liz Truss and the mini budget and so on, but many would say, well, actually there seems to be a rejection of Rishi Sunak and precisely that change to a safer pair of hands, as it were. It seems like voters aren't really buying that, going by the level of losses that you are finding.
Well, I just simply don't buy that. So ultimately,
people cheering in the background as it's announced that Labour keep winning.
To be quite clear, all the pollsters were saying that they expected the Conservatives to have quite big losses across the country. We know that ultimately, obviously, it's been challenging with the fact that we're still, on average, probably 15, 16 points behind in the national polls. We've clawed that back.
You barely clawed it back. It's it's the fact that the person who imploded the economy is gone. The fact that your party looks slightly saner. I guess you can argue you did claw it back a bit, but on average, you're not doing great, my guy. You're down about 15 points still in the polls. You were down by more than 20. You've clawed some of it back, not really through actions, but it's because you got rid of the lunatic.
Quite a lot, and that's thanks to Rishi Sunak. That's still Rishi Sunak delivering on those 5 pledges, making sure that he's talking to people day in, day out. We see the illegal migration bill.
My guy was talking to the CEOs, and the guy at Burberry pantsed him. He's not talking to anyone because the guy, he's got like as much kind of social charisma and the ability to talk to people as Starmer, which is zero.
Livid on that.
Well, the illegal migration bill is a humongous step forward, which the Labour Party are completely opposed to. They're happy for Brussels and Strasbourg to tell us. Well, if the Labour Party...
You aren't telling us to do anything, my guy. Like, what are you talking about? It's the UN. It's the UN that have condemned us. Strasbourg, talking about the European Convention on Human Rights. That's there to protect people, you absolute buffoon.
FD lawyer mates weren't looking to stop us at every opportunity. If Sir Keir Starmer would, actually tell them to step aside so we can deliver on the people's priorities, stand up for the sovereign...
Are the people's priorities to break UN conventions and the European Convention on Human Rights? Is that what people really want in this country? Really, you're basing this on what exactly? Polls? What information have you gathered to make people think that you have a mandate to break international rules and norms? Honestly, because I guarantee you run an election on that, you're not going to win.
Of our country, deliver on taking back control of our laws and our borders, then perhaps we can get on with the work that we want to do. But sadly, when we've got Sir Keir Starmer, who's happy to keep foreign national offenders on the ground here and then go on to commit other crimes, as was reported in the Sun newspaper.
Again, more cheering.
I think that's a huge concern, and voters will rightly be worried about the continuous flip-flopping from Sir Keir Starmer.
The only thing voters are concerned about is the fact that your party haven't dealt with any of the problems you guys claimed you've dealt with, all of the dumping and stuff in the waterways, the fact that people's lives have consistently gone worse under the Tory leadership. That's what people care about. You know, the Labour flip-flopping stuff we'll cover soon, but you know, at the end of the day, they've actually won seats. Their vote share hasn't really increased that much. The Lib Dems and the Greens have done much better, but you guys are the ones that you should be concerned about. You shouldn't be talking about Keir Starmer power. You should be talking about your own party's failures at this point and how you're going to fix things, because you haven't offered much. The voter suppression, the voter ID stuff, I know people abroad don't get it, but it's like you have voter ID laws and then you're typically given voter ID, like some sort of identification, like card or something for free, I think normally, whereas in the UK they don't really have that system, and you know, ID is very expensive in the UK depending on what forms you're looking at. So ITV reports, quote, polling stations tellers in Oxfordshire say large numbers of voters being turned away, reporting that between 10 to 25% were unable to vote. There was almost no voter fraud in the UK. There is now, and it is officially sanctioned. So almost, 10 to 25% is a huge number of people that weren't allowed to vote, and I do wonder if it's hurt the Tories more than it's hurt Labour. But if you want to vote, you have to make sure you've got the right kind of ID to vote now, and it's tragic because we never really had a problem with voter fraud. This situation the Tories have put us in. And I just want to cut to a clip of there's two more clips I want to talk about. This from John Curtis, where he talks about the fact that the Lib Dems and the Greens have done well from this, but for Labour it's not the best. It's not the best picture, should I say?
Certainly, when it comes to seat gains, it's definitely Labour who have made the biggest advance. But I think Labour will just be a little bit niggled about the fact that, again, when we add up the votes, the party doesn't seem to have made, at least in these local government elections, much of an advance on last year. I think it would have liked to have been at least up a point or two. In contrast, the Liberal Democrats are up a point or so, and in the end, if the Conservatives do, as they still seem to be at risk of being, 1,000 seats down on where they were at 7 o'clock yesterday morning, then it may well be the losses that the Conservatives suffered to the Liberal Democrats that will be a crucial part of that equation. And we may find the Liberal Democrats have it's not great progress, it's slow progress, but the Liberal Democrats may have recorded their best performance since 2010.
So for me, it's, Labour have struggled, I think, based on what John Curtis is saying, to increase their kind of vote shares dramatically. Ward changes are a different thing because you need a certain amount of councillors to change wards, whether that be, say, Labour into the majority rather than no control overall, stuff like that. So I'm not too focused on the ward control. It's just, the Greens and Lib Dems have done a lot better, and I think there is still a stigma. Maybe some Conservative voters don't want to vote Labour, so they're more happy to vote Lib Dems or Greens because it's not Labour, and Labour have to figure out a way to kind of sort that out. But I think the main issue is that the kind of UKIP votes have collapsed, and maybe those people haven't turned out or whatever, but they're voting Lib Dems or Greens. I don't know what exactly is going on here. We're going to have to look at more detailed polling. But the simple fact is Labour haven't done that well despite the Tories collapsing, and that's worrying at a general election level. And I wouldn't mind seeing a Labour Lib Dem coalition, depending on what kind of concessions are given from either side here. But it's not looking super positive for the Labour Party, and there might be other bias actors who will tell you that. But if you listen to actual experts like Sir John Curtis, there's a reason why he gets wheeled out on election days, and other people don't. It's because this guy, he's the goat for elections. He's that guy. He's like the CNN guy with the glasses who comes on whenever there's some sort of election. He's got that maniac-looking board, and he's telling you exactly what the hell's going on. And we'll go to the final clip. This from Times Radio, which I found semi-interesting.
If you draw the definition quite widely, but we're seeing a lot of UKIP collapse and Labour picking up the gains from that. And what we seem to be seeing is in Brexity areas, where the Tories obviously did well under Boris Johnson, they seem to be going back to Labour.
Like Stoke, for example.
Yes, exactly. And then in Remainer areas, southern Tory blue wall, as we call it, they seem to be going Lib Dem. So it's like the opposite of the coalition that Boris Johnson managed to build, managed to hold on to some of that Remain support in the sort of stockbroker belt and Remainery south, while also reaching into Brexit supporting north. It seems as if the Brexit supporting north, this is a broad brush and early days yet, but it seems as if the Brexit supporting north is going back to Labour, while the Remainery South Shire counties, which was blue, is turning Lib Dem.
Yeah, because what
it was quite interesting, like the coalition, like you said, the coalition that Johnson created, where he held on to the south and also made gains in the north, that's going the opposite direction now, with the Lib Dems taking the areas of the south and Labour taking back areas of the north. And as kind of Phil said, that maybe Sunak isn't good enough for the red wall where they'll vote for him. He isn't kind of populist enough for the red wall, but he's not, kind of Tory, core Tory, Cameron era Tory enough to win over the blue wall. And maybe people have just gotten sick of the geezer. Maybe people have gotten sick of the Tories, because Sunak's approval ratings are fine. It's just the parties are in the bin because of 13 years in charge. It's a long time to be in charge of a country. And the simple fact is a lot of the failures are being put on them. And once Labour, if they do start running with the lines of has your life actually improved under the Tories, if people think actually my life hasn't actually gotten that much better over the last 5 years, despite working 9 to 5 every day, or wherever your work shift pattern is, your mortgage, your bills gone up, your wages haven't gone up, your living standards haven't gone up, and if Labour will run with that kind of stuff and then say how they're going to improve people's living standards, that could be curtains for the Tories. It's not necessarily on Sunak anymore. It's just the rot is that deep that he can't save it. Like I said, 13 years in charge is a long time, and when party members, when they put in people like Liz Truss and Boris Johnson, and they cause absolute scandal after scandal, Liz Truss tanking the economy, how do you even come back from that? Labour never recovered from the 2008 crash. It's taken them a long time to kind of get any credibility back. And so I do wonder, how are the Tories meant to get any credibility back after the kamikaze budget? Because at the end of the day, that was a Tory Prime Minister. She was elected by Tory members, sure, but she's still a representative of the party. So yeah, it's good news, it's good news, potentially a Labour-Lib Dem coalition, and that's what I'd want to see, not an outright majority for Labour, not for now at least. I want to see voter reform, I want to see a PR system being put in place, and then after that, it's, we're more able to vote for the parties and the candidates we want, rather than having this two-party system where no one really likes the Conservatives, no one really likes the Lib Dems, but you vote for the one that's most likely going to win. And maybe in the future, I can actually look at what the Green Party have to offer, look at what the Lib Dems have to offer, and go from there, rather than saying, well, Labour are less bad than the Tories, guess I don't really have much choice. So hopefully a Labour-Lib Dem coalition. The Lib Dems is doing very well, I think, without really doing a ton, which means that if they do start pushing policies that people like, I can see it being very, very damaging for the Tories. But anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Labour still have a lot of work to do in regards to policy and getting their ideas out there. They've struggled a bit this week with Starmer's unforced error on tuition fees, him announcing it before the local election and looking like a right idiot. Hopefully, they can actually come up with something coherent and move on from there. If not, they're going to be in trouble, I think, during the next election. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.